Yeah, good morning. Welcome to our June Explore Day. We're so excited that you can be here with us and that we're joined by not one, but two amazing partners today. We have Le Nichoir, which is a bird sanctuary in Hudson, Quebec. And so this is where we will be viewing their facility today. And Plant a Seed and See What Grows is one of our partners, and they helped us pull this all together. So we're so excited to be here. So welcome to the, to our members and to our guests and to the Plant a Seed community as well. I'm Christina, and today I'm joined by Joanie Gagnon, who's the education coordinator at Le Nichoir, so she can just wave there, and also by Regina, who is from Plant a Seed.
Hi.
For our guests and for our first-time participants, Nature Kids is an organization that helps families get outside to play, learn, and take action for nature. And normally we would do this through in-person events, and we really hope that we'll be able to get back to doing that really soon. But over the last year or so, we've really had a lot of fun getting together virtually, and so we're really excited to be with Plant a Seed today. So Regina, maybe you want to just do a little introduction of Plant a Seed and tell us all about you?
Yeah, sure. We're happy to collaborate with Nature Kids BC and Le Nichoir. The Plant a Seed and See What Grows Foundation is dedicated to creating opportunities for children to explore the outdoors and be inspired by the breathtaking wonders of the natural world around them. We do this in classrooms, by school gardens, and by farm visits. So today's virtual visit is a great fit for our shared goals. Isn't that right, Christina?
Absolutely, yeah, we're so excited. And what's even cooler is that as Le Nichoir is in Quebec, so Joanie is bilingual. So if you want to ask questions in French today, you are more than welcome to do that. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Just a couple of housekeeping things. I will be recording this session today. So if you're not comfortable with that, you can just turn off your cameras. And there's going to be quite a few of us this morning. So I think that we'll stay muted. And if you have questions, you can put them in the chat. And at any time, you can say hi in the chat and introduce yourself and let us know where you're calling in from. And I think I'm going to turn everything over to Joanie to take us on the tour. So I'm just going to spotlight her so that she gets front and center here.
Yeah.
And Joanie, you're on.
Yes. Hi. So sorry. It's very active here. We're very busy. So I'm very happy to be here with everybody today. So as was said, we're here at Le Nichoir. So we are located in Quebec. We're close to Montreal, Quebec. So for us, it's actually afternoon right now. So we're very happy to kind of show you a bit what we do. So Le Nichoir is a wild bird conservation center. So we have been actually, this year is our 25th anniversary. So we've been operating for 25 years. So we do conservation of wild birds. We do that in two different ways. So we do education. That's my role here at Le Nichoir, is I do all the programs and I do education about it, just to teach people about birds, but also what we do and what they can do to conserve them. And then the second thing we do, which is the big thing we're going to see today, is rehab. So we do rehabilitation of injured and orphaned wild birds in order to put them actually back outside. So that's really the goal, is to release them back in the wild. So we'll be able to see a bit the center today. So we'll go through a bit of inside. You'll be able to see a bit of the backstage that most people, the public visiting, usually cannot see. And then we'll be able to go see the aviaries. I just do want to say, though, that we do have very poor reception here. So there are some areas that it may lag. We may lose the connection, and that we did a tour this morning, and it happened in a couple of areas. So usually we're back in about 15 to 20 seconds. So just be patient. We will be back. Don't worry. And then there's an area also in the back where we're going to have to kind of switch off the Wi-Fi and go on the signal. So again, it's going to lag for about 20 seconds. So I'll warn you for this one. But yeah, I just warn you, it may happen. Just don't worry. Just be patient, and we'll be right back. And yeah, so as we said, just ask your questions in the chat. And what we'll do, I know there's quite a few of you. So what we'll do is that we'll do part of the tour, and then we'll stop and answer anybody that has question that had put questions in the chat. So just write them as they come, and then we'll do a couple stops, and then we'll answer everything you have. And as we said, vous pouvez poser vos questions en français. Je suis parfaitement bilingue. En fait, ma première langue, c'est le français, donc n'hésitez pas dans la langue que vous préférez. So if you want to ask your questions in French, I'm perfectly bilingual. So we'll start. I just want to go see if there's anybody in the front. So this here is our main building. Yeah, perfect. So this is where basically when we get a bird, there has been people actually walking beside me as I was talking in the beginning. They walk their bird through here. And welcome to the center. So we have here our lobby. This is where basically, this is the entrance to the center. This is where somebody brings a bird. They will talk to the person in the front, which is actually busy with people that just brought bird outside. So he's just talking with someone right now. And then we can get some information, know what happened to the bird if people know. And then people are able to visit or basically see a bit of this area. So we have our own store. The store helps us actually fund our center because we are a nonprofit organization. So we are funded by the store, but also by donations and fundraising events that we're going to do. So this is our little store for also people that want to help birds. So we have window decals if people want to help prevent window collision, and then we have cat collars, and anything people want to have to help the birds. So at the center here, we receive usually our usual numbers were about 2,000 to 2,100 birds a year. Last year was a record year. We received 2,700 birds. We think probably because people were more outside, people found more birds. And already this year, we've already seen a 60% increase compared to last year in terms of admissions. So definitely we're getting more birds. It's getting very busy, which is good because that means the birds are getting help. But it's a very, very busy center. So we have 4 permanent staff and we have summer staff, summer students. So I think we have 6 or 7, depending on the year. And then we also receive the help from about 140 to 160 volunteers every year. And that will really help us to help all the birds that we have. Currently, we have a little over 300 birds on site throughout the building. And then most of these birds hopefully will be released. So this is the main area, as I said. And then if we walk through here, we have our classroom. This is where usually we would have our events, we would have classes coming over. Because of COVID and to make more space and reduce people having contact, we've actually turned it into a kitchen. So right now we use it as a kitchen for the aviaries outside. So the food is not prepared in the same place depending if the bird is inside or outside. So this is our current kitchen. For outside, it's obviously quiet now because all the birds have been fed already for the day. And we have window into the nursery, which we will go and see later. And we use a lot of boards and a lot of things to communicate. So communication is very important to make sure that all the birds receive everything they need. So this is basically a bird menu, just to say what the birds need to eat. Yeah. So we even have like the size of how big we should cut the fruits and everything. So communication is very, very important. And those boards work very well with the volunteers so they can just follow what they need to prepare in the morning.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, so it's very it's very active. As I said, 300 birds is a lot of work to feed. We have fridges a bit everywhere. Just to give you an idea, in the summer, right now we use probably about 3 to 4 heads of lettuce and kale every day to feed the ducks and the geese. And then we use about 60,000 mealworms every week to feed all our insectivorous birds, which is most of the birds we have. So most of our young birds are insectivores. So they will eat a lot of insects. And then we have also lots of fruits, lots of seeds. We use also fish. We have gulls that will eat fish. So there's a big variety of food that we need to have to feed all the different species that we get. So we're just gonna move through here. All right. So in terms of actually species that we get, the center will take care of, we kind of group them into three large groups. So we say the songbirds, so the passerine, and then we say the aquatic birds, and the insectivorous birds. So the insectivorous would be the swifts, the swallows, the whippoorwills, the nighthawks, and those birds that are strictly insectivores, also woodpeckers. But basically what it means is that we take care of any kind of wild birds that is not a bird of prey. We don't take birds of prey because there's another center that's local that will take care of birds of prey. So they can take care of all those guys, and they're specialized and they have all the facility for them. And we can take care of all the other birds. But that makes a very big diversity. So we have fish-eating birds, we have insect-eating birds, we have omnivorous bird. So we do have to have quite a big variety of food to be able to feed everybody. So just I want to show us, well, this is our donor board. So this is all the people that helped us build this building where we are right now. So the building here is about 5 years old, and until about 5 years ago, we were in a large barn that housed the Nichoir for about 20 years. So it was very great to have this building. We had to move every winter, move all the birds, all the supplies, all the food, all the cages. So it's great to have to now have an area that we can always stay in. Yeah. So we'll go into the back area. We'll kind of quickly show through the window our clinic where we do an exam. We won't go in because right now there's a lot of birds that have just been received. So we'll quickly see a bit what's there, but then we'll be able to go in the kitchen and into the nursery. Actually, before we go in, is there any questions in the chat? Now would be a good time.
So far, so good, I think.
No, perfect. Okay, I was just waiting for Catherine to check. Oh, as you can see, we we did receive a lot of birds, and my colleague is working very hard at taking care of all of them. So we do receive, basically a lot of people are not able to come here because we're far off the main city. So people can go to a local SPCA to bring birds. And then we have a volunteer that does transfer. So we do get quite a few birds at once a day. And that at once is right now for today. So we have to go through all the bird and do kind of a first exam, see what's wrong, see what the bird needs, and then decide where to place that bird. So if we come here, we have a good view of the different areas where we can put the birds. So we're going to have upstairs what we call their quiet room. This is where all the birds that are very highly stressed will be placed. So these would be the adults that are injured. So adult birds are very highly stressed. For them, we're big predators. So they think we want to eat them. So they really have to be in as quiet a place as possible. That will greatly improve their chances of survival. And then we also have a room downstairs, which is where we house the bigger birds that are not quite ready to go outside. So let's say the larger ducklings, the baby geese, which are a little larger, the baby crows. So all these birds that can't really be placed in a cage, but they're not quite big enough to go quite in the aviaries yet. So they'll have actually larger pens. So this is what we'll use to house them. Because there are ducklings downstairs, we won't go either because they are also very stressed. So that's why we also house very young ducklings upstairs in tiny incubators. Because when they're young, these guys are very, very stressed. So anything that's born fluffy, these are called precocial birds. And these birds, when they're born, they don't need to be hand fed, but they need to be kept in a very quiet and warm place. If not, they can actually pass from stress. So reducing stress is an extremely important part of what we do here. So these two rooms are kind of the rooms we use for that stress reduction. This room upstairs is actually soundproof. So that's a very important thing that we do to help them not feel stressed, because when they're stressed, their symptoms can get worse, especially like neurological symptoms. Well, let's say if you're bleeding, well, if you're stressed, your heart's going to beat faster, they can bleed faster. So these are all things that we always have to consider. And also they are more susceptible to diseases and more susceptible to parasites if they're stressed. And at that room downstairs I mentioned, this is also where we have our x-ray room. We need to do an x-ray, see if there's any fracture, any bullets, or any fish hooks. These are all kinds of cases that we can see. And this is where we can do the x-ray. And we also have a room that we call our isolation room. And this is where if we have a case that of suspected diseases that can be transmissible, we will put the bird in there so we prevent transmission to the other birds. And then this is the last room is at the end of the row here. We'll see it at the end. This is the nursery. This is where we keep the baby birds. I mentioned communication earlier. So this is where we communicate with our volunteers, which volunteer does what every day. So we make sure that everything is done. As you can see, it's quite a bit of things to do every day to feed and clean everybody. So every single bird in the center is cleaned and fed at least once a day. For the young birds, it's twice a day. And then there are so in here we have the kitchen. This is where we will prepare the food for the birds. We have obviously like more fridges. We have more boards to communicate. So this is like kind of the center of the center. This is where we're going to prepare all the food, especially when there's no COVID. This is the kitchen for all the areas. We also use this board, which is to keep track of when the baby birds are fed. So baby birds, when they're very young, they can be fed every 15 minutes. And then as they get older, we're going to space it every half hour, every 45 minutes. So baby birds need to eat a lot of food and quite often. And then as they get older, they're going to start to eat on their own. So this is all the hand-fed birds. And when they start eating on their own, then we're going to be able to kind of space the feeding even more and kind of offer them a little more food. And then slowly they're actually going to become independent. And throughout this process, like as they start eating on their own, start flying on their own, they will be moved to the aviaries. But for now, we're going to see the birds that are still inside. So this is a very busy room. So these are examples of birds that are in cages. So these guys are kind of not quite ready to go outside, but soon they'll go outside. So when they're kind of halfway, they're going in cages like that. We never use metal cages because these are dangerous for the feathers, but also the beak. If a bird panics, hits the side, it can get hurt by the metal, whereas the mesh is much safer. And then when they're younger, though, we use incubators. So we have teeny tiny little birds. This here is a baby sparrow. And this is a baby song sparrow. So they're very, very small. This one here, I think, is a chipping sparrow. A little smaller. We also have baby dove. So these are birds you see as are younger. So they're still in incubators. So we use incubators to basically keep them warm when they're younger. So these incubators we make ourselves, and we use just basically 2 bins and then water, and then we use a aquarium heater, and it works very, very well to keep the birds warm from the bottom. And then once they're a little older, they have more feathers, they'll get moved into like the bigger cages. So we have there's a little blue jays here, but he took a bath, so he's all wet. So we are going to actually go into an aviary with blue jays in a second, so we'll be able to see them better. Right. So any questions happened so far?
Joanie, you have a question. If not eagles and hawks, do you have falcons?
We have falcons in Quebec, but we don't take them here because they are considered birds of prey.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we do not take, let's say, owls, eagles, hawks, vultures. All those guys will go to the other center that's a little further from here. Is there any more question? No? Okay, so and also
there's another one.
Do their claws stuck in a mesh? Very rarely, but we always need to make sure that basically the mesh, because when the mesh are a little older, sometimes they get worn, and we have to keep track of like all the strings and stuff. Strings are very important to keep a track of because they can get tangled in it. So it does happen, but it's very rare.
What does le Nichoir mean in English?
Oh, good question. What does le Nichoir mean? So le Nichoir is a French word that means a nest box. So it's kind of a cute way to say that we're a nest box for injured and orphan birds. So about half of our birds are babies, and then the other half are injured. In terms of injury, the most common kind of injury is caused by cat attack. And then the other, and then kind of tied in with window collisions. So these are the two most common causes of injury we have.
Someone asked what birds were in the mesh cages.
The mesh cage we saw were house sparrows. And then we also kind of quickly saw a blue jay. We're going to go outside and look at the blue jays that are in the aviaries that are getting ready to. Are we good? Perfect. So what we'll do now is that we'll kind of turn off the Wi-Fi. You may lose us for about 20 seconds, and then we'll head outside to go into the aviaries. Hi, so we are outside. This is le Nichoir's backyard. As you can see where the trees are, this is where the nature reserve starts. So it's called the Clarkson Nature Reserve. It does not belong to Nichoir, but it's connected to it. So we use it a lot for releases. And it's great, so we can actually also go visit with classes and things like that. So it's really it's a natural area that's protected. And then here is the backyard of Nichoir. We let a lot of wildflowers, and we also planted a lot of wildflowers in it. So it's great for the birds because it provides a lot of habitat for pollinators, and then seeds and fruits. And then the pollinators can also actually serve as food for the birds and their babies. So this is our backyard. We get a lot of wild species actually also using this area. So it's really great to see all that. And then we'll go visit the aviaries. So we have 3 different kinds of aviaries. We have some for the songbirds, some for the woodpeckers, and some for the aquatic birds. We will start with the songbird aviary. So the songbirds are basically robins and blue jays, crows. So all the birds that like fly, that fly a lot, that goes in the trees. The perching birds is actually another term that we use to describe the songbirds. So as you can see, these aviaries are actually kind of almost round, so they are octagonal, and this allows the birds to actually build better flight muscle because they can fly in a circular motion, and they can fly continuously because when they're square they can only go back and forth and have to stop in between. So that's great, especially for birds like swallows and swifts, because once they're released they actually have to be able to fly all day long. So that's really great for them. And we will be able to go in some of the aviaries, but you can see here, these are young crows that we have raised since they were babies. They are still being fed, but they're actually starting to experiment the outside. So here is where they actually learn to survive the elements. So they see sun and rain, and they can communicate with the wild crows. So this is really an important part of the bird rehabilitation before they're released. And then you can see as well that we have a 2-mesh system. So you can see the outside is like of a very, very hard mesh, and that's to prevent predators from going in. So we do have things like weasels and raccoons that live in the area. So we don't want them to go in to hurt our birds. So this really prevents them from going in. And then on the inside, I don't know if you can see the black one, this is a soft mesh. So then if a bird actually panics and tries to fly out, they won't actually hurt themselves on the metal. So they will bounce off that softer mesh and not get hurt. So this here, you can see we have 3 aviaries on each side. These aviaries can actually be connected. So if you see that that green, we'll actually go inside. The green part, I'll show it for you in a second. There's a green membrane that we can remove, and then we can connect the aviaries. But right now they're all separated. So we'll go into this aviary here, and right here we have young blue jays. So we do have a mesh inside to prevent any birds from escaping. And that's the black membrane, the green membrane we can remove to make it one big aviary. Right now they are separated from the crows. And this here is our young blue jays. So these babies, these guys we got as babies. We can see they're not fully blue yet. They do still have their grayish back. So they are almost adults though.
So they're still being fed, but they're getting ready to be released soon. They like to talk a lot. So these are our young blue jays. They're quite curious birds, but we can see they're still afraid of us, which is good. This is what we want. We want them to be scared of people. We don't want them to be friendly, because if they're friendly, birds actually cannot be released. If they're friendly, they will not be able to survive very well. So being scared of people is actually one of the criteria that we're going to look at for the birds. So they won't be released if they're not scared of people. And then we can see the birds actually have access to the sun or the rain if they want. And then they also have a part that's covered to protect them from the elements. So they can choose. So that's very important for them to be able to choose and learn. And then we're back out. And then that's the back of the aviaries. And then we'll be able to go into another one. And here we're going to have smaller birds. So we have here well, smaller birds and also birds that are the same size. So we have a few doves that are up here. And we also have some smaller birds up here. They're a little more nervous because these are adult birds. So we have a little chickadee that's moving around, and we also have a little sparrow that's a little scared. So we can see the dove is a little scared of me, and then that's the little chickadee. And then we have all the food we prepare for them. We also have food that's scattered around the aviaries on the floor to really help them kind of feed more naturally, and they have a bath in water, obviously. So that was the aviary. So as you can see, we separate some birds. So that's a very important part when we place them outside. There are some birds that we have to never put together. So like blue jays are a good example, that a bird that cannot go with any other species. Crows is another one. So we always have to consider that when making a choice of which bird goes where, because some birds can be more competitive, more aggressive for food and things like that, or some that are bigger. So doves are a good example of a big bird that's very docile, so they won't be very dangerous for smaller birds. But there's not many bigger birds that we can actually put with things as small as a chickadee. So this is always things that we have to consider. Now we're going to go into the second aviary, and this here is our newest aviary. It's our woodpecker aviary. So the woodpecker aviary is actually very, very cool. So the thing with woodpeckers is that they peck wood. Obviously, that's where their name comes from. And then because they peck the wood, I'll go and show you from the inside and then we'll go in. Because they peck the wood, we want them to peck the wood, but they can also damage any structure. So what we did, a solution for that is actually quite unique in the rehab world, is that we created a special kind of wall that's actually covered with pieces we can change. So this has 3 compartments. And just like the other one, we can actually open them or separate them depending on the size of the bird and how many birds. So we have here one woodpecker, which we may not see, maybe a little nervous. I can hear it. So it's a hairy woodpecker. We will be able to go inside another one though. So it may come back when we come back around, but we'll go into another aviary so I can actually show you from the inside. So this here is the inside of a woodpecker aviary. So they still have access to sun, they still have access to shade if needed, but you see the walls are completely covered with bark pieces, and these bark pieces are like in sections, so we can remove them and change them as the bird actually go through them and make holes. And we can see we also have holes from insects, so insects actually live in it too, and then that's great. So that's perfect for the woodpeckers to still forage as they would normally in the wild. So these aviary are amazing. And then you can see they have small windows. They don't need as much light as other birds. They're forest birds, so they're actually a lot more comfortable in areas that are a little less exposed. So this is perfect for them. And these are the doors that we can open. So we can have an aviary that's larger. Let's say if we get a pileated woodpecker, which are very large, we can open that and give them more access. So that's perfect. All right. And then I don't know if we can see the woodpecker now. No, he's still hidden. So woodpeckers are very secretive, especially at Nichoir. In the wild, they're a little bold, but in captivity, they can be a little nervous. So that's the woodpecker aviaries. It's actually, as I said, it's very unique in the rehab world. There's a lot of other rehab centers that actually ask us for advice on those kinds of aviaries because they work pretty well. Woodpeckers are a little bit of a challenge for a lot of centers because of their habit of making holes through woods, obviously. So I'm heading towards the aquatic bird aviary. So this is kind of a different group of bird that we get. As you can see, we still promote native wildflowers in our landscape and in our how we arrange things. We also leave deadwood. Deadwood is very, very important for insects. So there's a lot of beetles and a lot of insects that are very important for the ecosystem that will come from deadwood. And also a lot of woodpeckers will use it. A lot of our birds will like go on it before they go to feeder or before they head somewhere else. We also have a lot of mammals that will use it. So chipmunks and red squirrels and the gray squirrels that will use it. I wouldn't be surprised if bats use it as well. And we also have a snake, a local snake that uses it for sunning. And we also have a water area for the birds to bathe. And again, lots of wildflower, perfect for pollinator. And we actually have some native bees, I believe, that are flying around in the sedum. So I don't know if you can see them, but they're they're around. They're flying. So little native bees. So we hear a lot about wild domestic bees, like the honeybees, but a lot of people don't know about all of our wild bees. We actually have quite a few, and they're very pretty. Some of them are small. Some of them actually are like or green or blue. So there's very pretty ones. So yeah, and they're very, very important. And they're actually sometimes put in danger by our domestic bees because they outcompete them for food. So protecting our wild bees is actually also very important to do, and not just the honeybees that provide us with honey. So here, this here is the duck aviary, the duckling aviary. So you see it's pretty large, and you see the other one right here. So this one is the goose or gull aviary. So this one is it's about the same size, but the first one will go in. The duckling aviary is actually divided in sections, so we can divide the ducklings by age. So ducklings, actually, I don't know if you've noticed, but the floor in the first aviary we saw was concrete. So this is fine for birds that fly around because they don't use the floor as much. They don't really stand on it too much. But those guys, their floor is going to be river rocks, and that's very important because they're standing on their feet all day, and if the floor is too flat, then you get pressure points, and then you can get actually a feet problem. So we call it bumblefoot, but it's pretty much like pressure sores that will happen if the floor is too flat. So we want something bumpy so the weight is not always at the same place under the foot. So that's perfect for them. Ducks poop a lot, so they're birds that have a very active digestive tract. So you can see that. So we'll go see some ducklings right here. All right. So as you can see, these are young mallard ducks. So you can see they actually have a mirror. And we have mirrors in all of our aquatic bird aviaries for the ducklings and the goslings. And that's because as you can see, they feel like there's more of them. And that makes them feel more comfortable because they're gregarious birds. So the more of them there are, the safer they feel. So they actually are less at risk of being targeted by predator. So they'll feel a lot more comfortable. So as you can see, they're kind of a darker orange, or a darker, yellow. And then I'll compare them with the next one in the next aviary, which we'll see right now. And then the next one is going to be birds, wood ducks. So this is another type of duck. As you can hear, they love the water. They were in the pool and I spooked them. So they are very nervous birds, as I mentioned earlier. So, and the birds love the water. So the pools get all changed every day, but they get dirty in a matter of like 20 minutes. They get super dirty, or dirty-ish. They look dirty, but they're cleaned every day. So again, the mirror, but here they are. So the wood ducks are a little nervous, but you can see they're kind of paler than the ducks we just saw. So see, they're very nervous of me. So we'll get out so we don't freak them out too much. Okay. Upsalai. Okay. So this was for the smaller birds. So the very small ducks are kept inside, in aviaries. So let's say first week they're kept in aviaries inside in our quiet room. And then second week to third week, they're kept in the basement in a bigger pen. And these guys are 3 to 4 weeks. And then once they get bigger, they can move into the big aviaries. This one for now is also separated, but it's temporary separation. And then we separate them by age. But then once they get bigger, they can actually fly. So the birds we're going to see are 4 weeks and over. They're almost ready to be released. So you can see they'll start to have their feathers. Okay. So just going to make sure we close the door so we don't lose birds. Okay. All right. So again, a little nervous, but there they are. So again, the river rock on the floor is going to help them a lot. And these are a little older again. We can still see the fluff on their face, but their body's starting to get their adult feathers already. So these are a few weeks away from being released. And then the ones on the other pen that we're going to see are, oh, there they are a little bigger. So see, those ones have most of their feathers, except for the wings. So these are almost ready to be released. So we separate them by age like that, because ducks can be a little bit of bullies. So they will actually go after ducks that are smaller than them. And then we actually have a goose in the other section that's peeking over. That's an adult, so she's a little more nervous, but right now she's curious. Yeah, there you go. She's saying hi. So she's actually able to go from pen to pen, but she doesn't really bug the smaller guys. So she's been here for a little while. She needs to molt. So there's something wrong with her feathers. They're not really good quality, so we have to wait for her to molt, and that only happens in July. So we'll have to wait, and then see. Hopefully she'll be good after. Yeah, she's wondering what's happening. Okay. All righty. So you can see again that we have the double mesh system in this aviary as well. So the soft inside mesh, that's black, and then we have the outside mesh that's hard. So even if they're bigger, they're also endangered of being caught by predators. So very, very important to protect them. All righty. Okay. So this is the back of the aviaries. So when people visit, they can usually see them from the back. We have education panels. And then we have path going along. All right, so this is the back of it. The aviaries, the first aviaries we went in, and the trees. So we will be going back inside. Here, even on our building, we have wild birds. They like us. So that's the wild robin that made her nest there. We also have phoebes using this area. So there's a lot of birds using our structures, and a lot of birds will do that. They'll use human structures to nest. We'll get a lot of calls from those, but they usually don't do anything, so just leave them be and enjoy. All right, so we're just gonna go back in and answer some questions.
Do you have any herons? Do we get herons? Yes, we do get herons. It's a little early for herons. We get them usually in August, but we get the young ones. We get the young great blue herons, which are kind of the biggest one we have here. And I believe you guys have the same in out west, but we do also get like bitterns and green herons and then the small bitterns.
Are loons related to penguins?
Okay, good questions. No, they're not. So penguins are kind of really their own group. They do have similar adaptations because they are both birds that are adapted to aquatic life. So they both have legs that are really meant for propulsion in the water, but loons can definitely still fly. So loons are able to, they're actually pretty good flyers, but they need a very long distance of water to be able to take off because they're very, very heavy birds. I don't know if you saw there's a loon we have taxidermy of a loon at the top. This taxidermy is actually wrong. So loons are actually not able to stand on their legs. Their legs are so far back on their body that they can't stand on it. So you wouldn't be able to stand upright like that. But that gives you a good idea. See how far their legs are compared to, let's say, a duck. For ducks that are not diving, their legs are a lot closer to the middle of the body, so they can actually walk as well.
What's your favorite bird?
What's my favorite bird? Good question. I would say the gulls. Gulls are my favorite bird. We have the ring-bill gulls, which are very cute. The babies look like little fluff balls. They're adorable. But any kind of gulls, I would say probably the great black-backed gull, maybe my favorite. It's like very big and gorgeous. Can you become moving my computer? Just turn it off. All right. So sorry about that. So I kind of lost the connection with the Bluetooth now. So can you still hear me? Fill you up.
Yep, it sounds fine.
Perfect. So so the question, sorry. Oh, can anybody ask any brother falcon? Yes. So people do bring birds of prey here. We've gotten falcons. We've gotten owls quite often, some hawks. I think we've had vultures too. So people just don't know we don't take them, and they bring them here. It's happened with bats as well. So bats are obviously mammals. They're not birds, but people have brought bats here because either they didn't know they were mammals or in their head they fly, so they should come to Nichoir. So yeah, but and for those guys we can do first aid, and then we get them transferred to the proper places.
Zach asked, a bird hit their window once pretty badly and they thought it was dead when it flew and when he went to help, but it wasn't and it flew away 3 minutes later. Was it badly injured?
Oh, good question. So window collision, as I said, are kind of the second most common cause of injury that we see here. So what happens is that when birds hit window head first, they kind of get a little concussion. So in most cases, what we tell people is to put them in the box and actually wait for an hour or two. And then when they open the box, the bird will often fly away. So the fact that it flew away is a good sign. The thing is, we never know. Sometimes they may have some brain injuries that will kind of not show until later, but it's really hard to know. But there was nothing really you could do if that was the case. So the bird, even if the bird goes to a rehab center in that kind of situation, they often will not survive anyway. So I would say if he flew away, he was probably fine. It's not impossible he wasn't, but it would probably be fine.
Tane asked, have you gotten red-shouldered hawks before?
I don't. Maybe I haven't seen red-shouldered hawks, but I wouldn't be surprised if we got any. I think we got all the other types of hawks. We got red tail, we got rough leg, rough wing. We got a lot of types of hawks.
Tabby and Sophie would like to know, is that a snow goose in the back left corner of the room?
Yes, it is. Good spotting. So we have a snow goose up there, and then a very weird taxidermy wood duck. Very old taxidermy. But yeah, snow goose. We get snow geese here as well. We don't get many as rehab, but they fly through a bit east of Montreal.
Or Barnes asked, do you release all the birds from your center, or do you take them back to where they were found to let them go?
Ooh, good question. So it will depend. So a lot of birds we will release in the back if they're, let's say, babies, because when they're babies, their parents would be chasing them off their territory anyway. And then we know here that in the back is a very good habitat, and then they have time to kind of learn to hunt and everything. If it's an adult, especially if it's an adult that has a territory or has a mate, we will try to release them back. So for example, crows live in families. So we will kind of try to release crows back where they were found because they will go back to their family groups. Cardinals stay on territory all year. So we will kind of bring them back. Same thing with woodpeckers. Even if they move a little bit, we'll try to release them back with their mate or territory. So it depends on the case.
Zane asks, have you ever got a hummingbird?
Yes, we actually got one last week. So we do get hummingbirds. Not very common because they're small. So I think oftentimes people just don't find them. But we do get a couple a year. Never gotten babies though, only adults.
That's all the questions in the chat for now.
Just don't be shy. Ask your question. It could be other things if you want. If I don't know, I'll tell you. But if it's mammals or reptiles or anything, if I can, or pollinators or insects. I love insects and pollinators and plants.
On our computer, it says the chat was disabled, so people won't be able to submit questions.
Let me see what that's up to.
You can feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question out loud too.
So, Joanie, how can we help the birds? Yeah, how can we help the birds so that they thrive and that they live longer and that they don't get injured?
Sure, that's a super good question. How long do you have? No, I'm kidding. So there's a couple things you can do. First thing you could do is make your yard safe and attractive. So planting native plants is very, very nice. So by planting native plants, you actually encourage native insects, because a lot of our native insects are actually associated with one or few native plants. There's actually a research study that's very interesting that says to keep bird population to the level they are now, at least 70% of your plants need to be native. So, but ideally they should be more because you want to increase the bird population. Because a lot of birds, like we can put feeders, we can put fruits, but a lot of those birds actually need insects for their babies. So you want to promote insects, you want to have insects. To do that, again, so planting native plants, plants that are attracting to pollinators. So a lot of flowering plants, some of them will attract native bees, some of them will attract butterflies or moths, so any kind of pollinator. And also don't use pesticides. So any pesticides you use usually does not stay where you put it. So the least you use, the better it is. So you encourage more insects. So that's for encouraging them to live. You can also protect habitat. Habitat is very important. As to what you can do at home, as I said, the most common cause of injuries are cats and windows. So we can protect them from windows by placing window deterrent. So things that you put in your window to kind of show the bird that there's something. So why birds hit windows is because the reflection in it kind of shows the habitat, and birds don't have the concept of window. They don't know it's glass. So they think they can go through. So anything you can put on the outside of your window, and outside is very important, it won't work on the inside. So blinds do not work. They have to be on the outside, and anything you can put will work. The more you put, the more it works. So I don't know if you see some of the windows at Nichoir, you may have noticed there's dots in it. So those dots are to help birds. So these are one of the best things you can put is those window dots. But anything you put helps. Even those window feeders, those feeders that actually stick in the window, These are great because birds have to slow down before they get to the feeder. If you have feeders that are not in the window, ideally less than a meter or more than 10 meters from the house is the best location, because if they're less than a meter, the bird will not have enough speed to hurt themselves in the window. It can be less than 2 meters. Less than a meter is better, but 2 meters is fine. And then if it's further from the house, the bird will avoid. Other thing you can do, sorry, is not let your cat free roam outside. Very sorry. So cats are a very big predator of birds. They are not a native predator. Cats are not from North America. And what happens is that cats are very, very good predators. And they're the only predator that we have here that hunts like the way they do. So no other mammal predator will kind of be around so much during the day. All of our mammal predators are usually out at night where birds are sleeping and hiding, whereas most of the predator of birds during the day are birds. So birds are kind of not very well adapted to protect themselves from cats. And cats often will hunt not for food, but they will hunt for instinct. That's an inner instinct. So the best thing is to control your cat's movement outside. So have a catio, which is basically an enclosure for your cat outside. You can also walk your cat on leash. And especially, that's especially important when the baby birds are on the floor. So when they are learning to fly, at fledgling stage, it's normal for them to be on the ground. They're learning to fly, but they'll spend about 2 weeks to learn. And that's when they're the most vulnerable. So from the end of May until the end of July is when there's the most babies on the floor. So that's the most important time of the year for them. But throughout the year is ideal. So these are the kind of the biggest thing you can do to help birds at home.
I have a question. How can you prevent like neighborhood cats? Like we have a bird feeder outside, and there's a couple neighborhood cats that like to come around, and I'm not really sure how to prevent them from coming.
Yeah, it's a little tricky. And that's also one of the other reasons why I do tell people to it's better to control your cat, because it's also for the neighbors. So that's a very good example. Like for myself, I don't like the neighbor's cat coming in my yard because I'm feeding birds, but also it drives my cats that are staying indoor a little crazy. So it's also kind of neighbor respect. So things you could do, you could, I guess, try to talk to your neighbor. There are some cities that have bylaws that your cat needs to stay on your property. Same thing for a dog, which should be the same for cats. Cats should be staying on your own property. So check maybe with your bylaws. But otherwise, I think one of the best things that would work would be, it's kind of a system that see movements. So with a movement detector, and that you connect that to a hose. And that actually works very well for cats. So it's basically as soon as there's a movement, people use that thing to scare groundhogs and stuff from their garden, but it works very well with cats. So if you put that in your yard, and as soon as they see the movement from a cat, it's gonna spray a little water. Doesn't hurt them, but it works very well because obviously cat needs water. So that's one of the best thing I think I know to prevent cats from.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I had one other quick question. I've heard from like the SPCA and stuff that it's like having a bird feeder out is not necessary in spring and summer months. And I've heard from our local bird store that it's okay to have it out year round with animal cruelty. So I'm just wondering what would be the best thing for birds.
Yeah, I mean, they're both right. So if in summer, I mean, it's never necessary. So you have to remember that birds can find the food on their own. They never really need us to put feeder. It definitely does give them a hand.
Listening. Wait.
Spring, especially in the winter, when there's not a lot of food, in early spring and in late or fall when they're migrating. So this is when it helps the most. In the summer, there's a lot of natural foods that don't really need the feeder as much. They won't rely on it as much, but nothing prevents you from doing it. So if you want to still attract birds, they definitely are still going to be birds in the summer. It's just going to be a lot less because there's plenty of food outside, and they will eat insects, and they will feed their babies insects and stuff. So it's really up to you. If you want to keep feeding, definitely keep feeding. If you don't, just don't. In summer is when it doesn't have as much of an impact.
Is it harmful to the birds though?
No, it's not harmful.
So there's
Okay.
no birds that will migrate because you don't feed, because you feed. So that's a myth that's kind of I hear commonly. Is people think that because they feed, the bird will not migrate, and that's not true. And the other thing too, the one exception would be suet. So you should not offer suet in the spring and summer. So as soon as the temperatures are constantly above 5, I would say just don't feed suet. Because suet, even if you have like all season suet or no melt suet, it's still made of fat. It's still gonna kind of spoil in the sun, and it's still gonna kind of melt. And the problem is that if it goes on their belly feathers, it's very hard for them to remove. They can get actually, what it does is it breaks their natural barrier against the water, and then they can actually get water touching their skin, and that's how they get hypothermic even in the summer. And also what happens in the spring is that they sit on eggs. If they get oil on their belly, then they're going to go sit on eggs, and that oil can deposit itself on eggs, and then you can actually kill the baby in the egg because the baby needs to breathe through the eggshell. So that's why we say suet should not be offered in the summer, but you can still offer any kind of seed. It's fine.
So just regular bird seed then, instead of
sometimes it's kind of the best seed to offer because it's one of the favorites for a lot of birds. Otherwise, any kind of good seed mixes, there's a lot of bad seed mixes, so just make sure you get a good one. And then peanuts are very good. Peanuts, woodpeckers love peanuts.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Any more questions? No. So I know I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier about fledglings. So that's a good thing to know, because that's one of sometimes the cause when we get birds that we should not be getting them. So when I said birds are learning to fly on the ground, so let's say I take a robin, which is a common bird. So robins will reach its adult size in about 20 days. It will stay in the nest about 14 days. And then until about day 30, they will depend on their parents. So for the first 2 weeks of their life, they're kind of dependent on their parents in the nest, and they won't leave the nest. After that, they will leave the nest, be on the floor, and learning to fly. So that stage between day 14 and day 30 is fledgling stage, is when they're learning to fly. And people often see them on the floor and think they're injured because they can't fly yet, but they can walk. And then that's why people bring them, because either they think they're hurt because they can't fly, or they think they're abandoned because they're on the floor and they look like a baby. But that stage is very important. And even if the parents is not right beside them, the parents are around either feeding another baby or looking for food. So this is a very important period for them. So the best thing, if it looks healthy, to just leave it there. So baby birds should be on the ground. They should be alone. If you find a baby duckling or a baby goose or anything that's fluffy, these guys should never ever be alone. So that's the exception. So if you see those guys on the floor, they can walk, they look healthy, but they should never ever be alone. So these should be caught and brought to a rehab center. In all those cases, like in every case, you find a bird either orphan or injured, these birds really need to go to a rehab center or a vet, depending on where you are. It's not something we can really do at home. These birds, especially if they're hurt, they need medication. And they need proper veterinary care. They need x-rays to see what's wrong with them. Whereas for babies, it's a lot of care. It's very intensive. So as I said, they're fed every 15 minutes for 12 hours a day. A lot of care. And the problem is that they grow so quickly that they'll actually get health problems and they'll get exactly what they need. So the food we offer them, for example, is a lot of supplements from vets and things like that. To make sure that they don't develop malformation. And those malformations are actually life-threatening. And so a lot of those birds cannot survive in the wild if they're not fed properly. So I said the robin gets about the adult weight at about 21 days. So imagine he just did in 21 days what a human do in 18 to 20 years. So a human year is basically the same thing as a bird day. So just imagine feeding a human baby with bread for a year. Your human baby will have lots of health problems, and the same thing with birds just happens so much more quickly. So that's why it's very important to go with people that really know what they're doing
and have all the thing they need to do. Did I get enough questions?
Well, thank you so much, Joanie, and you're so knowledgeable, and it's just so great to learn about how we can help birds in our big backyards.
If we have questions in the future, where would be a good, can we contact the Nichoir, or is there a good place to ask questions, more questions?
Yeah, so people are welcome to ask us questions. The best thing to reach me would be education@lenichoir.org. That's my email. So people can send us general information question. And I mean, if anybody's from Quebec and has an injured bird, you can contact us for help with the injured bird. There are definitely centers in BC. I think you have BC Wild Park, which is, I think it's close to Victoria, but you definitely have other centers. I just don't know them all, to be honest. But there are some, so you can contact them. There are centers across Canada. Ontario has a very good website with all the centers in Ontario. So they are, just look locally for your center. You can actually go right now and look. So if ever it happens, you know where it is. And yeah, so you can just send me an email if you have any question. And as I said, I'll try to do a little video inside the aviaries and kind of share it with you if I can. To kind of show you a little bit inside the birds, the things that unfortunately we couldn't see. So we're very sorry about those problems again.
Well, thank you, Joanie, and thank you so much for your time today. And yeah, just we can send a link, as Joanie said, from a past presentation where we did a tour of the aviary, so you can see some of the birds that we missed today, and at least they'll get a feel for what was out there. And yeah, we can also send contact information so that if you have questions about birds, and I think we can also probably put together a list of some sanctuaries in BC, so that if you find a bird in your community, that we can you can figure out where the best place would be to take it.
Yeah, bird or mammal or reptile, they all need help. All right, so thank you again for joining.
Yeah,
and,
thanks everybody.
Hopefully you have much today.
Thanks, Joanie. Thanks,
Bye.
Christina. Thanks,
welcome.
everyone.
Enjoy your afternoons.
All right, bye-bye.